Hi, everybody. We are officially live right now. Benefits, barriers, women in sports. Thanks to the Canadian Women in Sport in putting this together on all the platforms, wherever you're watching on Facebook. I know it's on various platforms. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we can't wait to get you involved in the conversation of Change the Game. I'm Annie Petrillo from CBC Sports, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Jamie Lee Rattray. Three-time world medalist playing hockey. So hockey is the sport that you play. Patty Kazmaier, winner. That is for the top women's hockey player in NCAA. So many accomplishments for Jamie Lee. And Kelly VanderBeek, also a co-worker of mine over at CBC Sports. But yes, and an Olympian, and alpine skiing is the sport that you participated in. So we'll get a little bit more into that. We want everyone to get involved in the conversation. I obviously have my well-prepped questions, but I want to hear from you. I'm sure maybe you have some questions as well that you want to ask these incredible athletes. And in particular, as we are talking about girls, women, and the benefits and barriers of sports. And so Jamie Lee and Kelly will be my first guests here. And then afterwards, we're going to have Crystal Emmanuel. And we're also going to have Melissa Humana-Paredes. So I'm starting with the winter athletes first, which is very fitting since we're making our way into winter right now. So Jamie Lee, why don't I start with you? And maybe I'm going to just kind of get you thinking a little bit right now. If I ask you about the joy that hockey has brought into your life, what would you say to that? How would you describe that?
Well, I think it's just life. Like you said, I think, I started playing at a very young age, and it has been my whole life essentially. All my friends are basically from me growing up or playing on teams, and all the connections that I've made have been through hockey. And I don't know how to tell you, but every day that I get to go train and see my teammates is something that really brings me a lot of joy. So I don't know, life is a good word for it, because hockey basically is my life, and I'm very grateful for it because it has given me so much to enjoy.
Kelly, I got to turn it over to you then when it comes to skiing and just kind of hearing that fresh snow as well, maybe underneath the skis. What does it mean to you and the joy that ski racing has brought to you?
I think I'll emulate what Jamie said, where it is life. And once it becomes a part of your life, there is no separating one part of you from the other part of you. And sport is an integral part of who I am, what I do, and my professional life, as well as my personal life, whether it's the fact that I did professionally a lifelong sport. I still ski for fun. I love it. Bringing out my son to teach and introduce him to the sport. I cannot say I've had a happier moment in my life than doing things like that. And the idea of engaging our communities and sharing the value of sport with people around me, it brings me joy, it brings value to my life, and it also, I think, brings value to the communities I'm a part of.
Okay, so I flip it. Jamie, you can't play hockey anymore. How does that make you feel if I tell you that?
Well, pretty sad, I think. But I don't know. I think it would be a tough pill to swallow, but also, until this point, it's given me a lot of great things, and it's given me a lot of lessons to take on in life as well. You think about being on a team and how to be a teammate, be a good leader, all those types of things that you could take on in any profession, doesn't matter what it is. And, hockey's given me a lot of those skills that I think a lot of team sports do, whether hockey, anything you can think of is very, very rewarding for me. And I think, take it away, I think I would still be able to take a lot from it as I was growing up.
Definitely lessons there. And I know you're still playing with Kelly. Obviously, you officially made, your announcement. You retired a few years back, being an Olympian, being on the World Cup circuit. So obviously doing it competitively. You just mentioned right now, though, that it is still something that you do in your regular life. But what was even that transition like, where you knew you weren't going to be competing anymore? But to your point, it was such a fabric weaved into the fabric of your life that you just knew you'd still ski no matter what.
I knew I'd still ski. To me, it's a part of my Canadian identity as well, as playing in the winter and being passionate about engaging other people to play in our winter. I also live in a cold part of Canada. I'm in the Rocky Mountains, and it's snowing right now. So that's part of it, is you got to, otherwise you just don't feel very good for a very long time. But ski racing, it honestly brought me a lot of emotional control as well. It taught me how to manage fear. It taught me how to take on challenges. It also gave me a lot of grit. I think you need to be thick-skinned to survive in sport, and that grit has served me well later in life. But it's also, it's fun. At the end of the day, sport and moving, it's fun. And Jamie, you mentioned the team dynamic aspect, and I was in an individual sport professionally, but it is without a doubt a team sport. The association, the coaches, the physios, and my teammates, how we work together, how we feed off of each other, because you sink or swim together, whether you're on your own or not. And perhaps tennis is a bit more individual, like they travel as pods, but we traveled as a team and we competed against each other, but we also supported each other in the finish area.
You just mentioned you're somewhere very snowy. I know that JB and I are in the Toronto, Ontario area where it's very rainy. So I encourage anyone who's watching right now, tell us where you're watching from. What part of Canada are you tuning in from? What's the weather like over there? I always find that pretty interesting. So obviously some great benefits here when it comes to sport, and it's so wonderful to hear. And Jamie, I feel there's an old story when it comes to young girls playing hockey, right? And that is the separation of the dressing room. And I know you've shared some stories of changing in the boiler room. And I don't know if you could just, it's become accepted. I don't know if it should. I think in some places, maybe it's changing where they're getting proper dressing rooms now. But what were some of those challenges, even when you were younger and being a girl where there weren't a lot of teams available to you that were all girls? Because obviously you had to play on a boys team. What were those younger years like?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, I think you're right. It is accepted in a lot of places, which is, kind of hard to swallow as a female. But I think the tough thing was for me was, kind of being separated, like I talked about before, being on a team. And that was the big thing that I wanted to be a part of, was being in the dressing room. That's where you get all the social and, that part of the game that I really do enjoy now. And that part was hard, I think. I think it took me, until I got into girls hockey to really appreciate those moments in the dressing room and things like that. And I remember one story when I was a kid. I think, I was continually trying out for this AA team. I grew up in Ottawa, Ontario, and I just never made the cut. Like, it was 2 or 3 years in a row where I was clearly good enough to be on the team. I just never made the cut. And finally, they used to call us at home, and I had hung up the phone. They had cut me again. And I said to my dad, I said, what do I got to do to make the team? And it was just a point where, at the point where it was because I was a girl, and, it kind of taught me a lesson to be like, let's go down and play A and show them that, I do deserve to be there and kind of rise through that. And that was one experience that kind of stuck with me as I grew up, is that no matter what happens, just try to prove to yourself that you deserve to be there. So that's kind of one memory that sticks out in my head and something that I had to learn from as a young kid.
How crucial was that support then from your parents? I can't imagine them having to have that conversation and admit the only reason why you're not making this team, let's just, face facts, is because you're a girl. But they didn't give up. For you not to give up tells me they didn't give up either. So what does that mean to have that support system when you were at such a young age where they really did dictate what would happen in your life at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all, my parents have, now that I'm kind of an adult and realize how much money and time and everything goes into it, I really appreciate everything that they did to me, and emotionally too, right? You always wanted to play at a high level growing up, and they had to emotionally support me too through all the tough times. And, I could never say thank you enough to them, because they were amazing support to me. And at the time, my dad, I'm sure, didn't want to have that conversation, something that he didn't want to, have to tell me. But, it was the reality at the time. And I was happy that he said that to me, because I had learned from it.
Yeah. And you want to see that change, because you're right. How many times do we hear in a team sport, all the bonding that goes on in the locker room, dressing room? That's where it really all kind of shakes down. And to not be a part of it is something that a lot of young girls miss out on when they're in that co-ed type of squad. Kelly?
And I'm just thinking about hockey, and it's reminding me when I was young. So my son's playing hockey now. And when I was young and I was going into sport, my parents put me in every sport under the sun. But hockey, it was like, no, it's a boys' sport. It wasn't even a discussion. It wasn't even a conversation. It was just is. It was a law. Like, and that finality and that kind of where it wasn't even an option, wasn't discussed. It wasn't. That surprises me now. When I'm looking back, I'm going, wow, it wasn't even a thought. The boys on the other hand, too, in my family, 2 girls, 2 boys, they played other sports, and it was almost a law where it's like, oh no, you're Canadian, you're a boy, you play hockey. Yeah. Even if you like ski racing, if you like other sports, you play hockey. And so there's sort of this undercurrent that, and I'm not that old. And I'm like, what the? Like, and my parents, I wouldn't have, They aren't backwards. They were very supportive, very empowering. My mom was my role model. My big sister was my biggest role models. And yet that was very much a part of my undertone as a kid. And I didn't even realize it until I became older. And that's the thing with biases. You don't even know they exist until you have space or somebody points them out and you go, oh.
Yeah. Well, and it's so true, because how often do you hear, well, if girls have to be on a boys team, it's because there's not enough of them playing. Okay, that may be true, but why isn't there enough? Is it because there's this belief that they shouldn't be playing, or that it is for boys, or that the resources aren't there, so why even bother? And then parents have to ask themselves, well, do I really want my daughter changing in a boiler room and maybe, not being a part of it? So is it really because girls don't want to participate, or because there's not as many doors open for them to participate? And these are the real types of conversations that we're having right now. We just had someone write in, Angela, saying she started playing hockey at 40. I love it.
Love it.
Yeah, same here. Started hockey at age 40. Angela Donovan Jackson. Yeah, doesn't matter the age. Just start playing. I mean, be careful.
My first helmet, my first glove, my first. I'm like, I'm in.
I'm just saying, as someone who's in that 40 range too, I don't get up as quickly as I used to when I fell. So I would just say, still be very careful when it comes to that. That's for sure. So I want to get to something with you. So Kelly, as you know, right, being in ski racing, I find that the disciplines do have the gender associated with it, right? Like it's usually the men's downhill and the women's downhill. But, Jamie, when it comes to more of those commercial pro sports, the gender is usually only associated with the women's game, right? Like you don't say this is the men's hockey game. It's the women's hockey game. You don't say here's the World Cup, for men, but you will say it's the Women's World Cup. If we're to move forward, if we're to further the conversation along and maybe go from conversation to action, is that part of that action, the semantics of it all, how we talk about it? I know it may seem trivial to some people, but sometimes it just, like, I don't introduce myself as a female sportscaster. I mean, why should I? Ron McLean doesn't say I'm a male sportscaster, right? I mean, I don't know if that's something that bothers you, or if it's something that you thought about, where maybe it's time to start eliminating the gender from the title.
No, I 100% agree with you. I think we just, like you said, we want to drop the female from a lot of things, right? Like a lot of times I'll even catch myself saying I'm a female athlete. And I'm like, wait, I'm just an athlete. I'm the same, right?
Yeah.
I'm the same as the guys. I train just as hard. I'm on the ice just as much as they are. Maybe I'm not making millions of dollars like some of them are, but I am putting in the time, and my focus and my effort is exactly the same, right? And I think that's something along every sport. And I think, for example, I'll use the WNBA for an example. They've done a really good job of, those girls get exactly the same resources as the men, and they've pushed forward, and they have, and the men supporting them in the same way, right? We saw LeBron with a WNBA hoodie on. Like, how awesome is that, right? So I think we're making steps forward, but I think we need to also, as female athletes, right, we need to also hold ourselves accountable and be like, hey, I'm an athlete. I'm also in the same category as all these guys, right? I can train right alongside them, or, I should be treated exactly the same way in my discipline, because I am just as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable in my discipline. So, what, I think it's, it's both sides need to, hold themselves accountable. And, I do think we are making a lot of strides, but obviously, like anything, we can always make more too.
Mm-hmm. Where do you think things maybe need to change on that front, Kelly, when it does come to skiing? Because it at least to me, and maybe you would have a different opinion on this, right? It's the downhill men's edition. It's the downhill, women's edition. You do kind of say that. But other than that, I don't know, where would you see, when it comes to words, semantics, things like that, would you feel there would be a need, if any, when it comes to alpine skiing?
Well, in alpine, I mean, we are separate circuits, and I think that that's also quite common, whether you're talking golf or hockey or anything. There's separate circuits. Tennis is together, and I think there is something to be said about having events that are more unified. So it is, okay, we're heading to this location for this event, and it's assumed that men and women will be competing. And it might be on different courts, it might be on different courses, it might be on different hills, but they're in the same place. And I don't know, logistically, alpine is just so big, and geographically, as well as the crowds that come in the outdoor. So it's both aspects. But whenever possible, and more often, I think if they brought them together, the circuits, that would be important. But sport is entertainment. And the whole idea of, are you not entertained? And when you're watching sport, whether it's a man or a woman competing, it's entertainment. And I wrote an article after Rio, Andy, that was about television. And in TV, we often talk about as broadcaster, like what's somebody's hook, like what's the hook that's going to make our audience care, that's going to engage you. And men and women, we have them for everybody. And it's sort of, okay, this is a little nugget about you that's going to give interest to you. For example, Penny Alexiak, her brother's an NHLer. And so Jamie, and that is just something that will just give you a bit of context about her, her family, whatever. And then the competition happens. And with men, the competition happens, they finish, and it's like, okay, they're just talking about the medal that Michael Phelps just won, his 25th gold medal or whatever it is.
28, yeah.
28, yeah. Okay, it's a lot. And then you have on the women's side, remember they had the American Chicago Times posted what was it? It was wife of Bears lineman wins a bronze medal today in Rio. And it's like, whoa, does she have a name? Wait a second. And it's like, it'd be like saying to Phelps, it's like, oh yeah, the fiance of the previous Miss California just won a medal. Like, it doesn't happen. Sport takes center stage once the event happens. And I think that that's an indication of why our language matters, how we use it matters, and knowing our biases and being able to see them, tackle them, and change them. And it does take time because they're habits. As much as we say bias, it's like, oh, I don't have any biases. We all do. We all do, against men and women, against races. We're grown up, and we have to acknowledge, if nothing else this summer, acknowledge we have biases and change them. Move forward with open eyes and willingness to look at ourselves more critically.
Jill Schofield writing an unconscious bias. Like, you're right. And Jamie, you also brought up a point. We almost have to hold ourselves accountable because sometimes you fall into old habits. You fall into a rhythm. When we speak about, athletes as well, a lot of times with women, it's, can you believe she's a mom too, or she has X amount of kids? Meanwhile, there's a guy who maybe has 4 kids, but nobody wants to talk about the lack of sleep he's getting or anything. And while I can appreciate understanding an athlete's personal life too. And that, listen, I mean, Kelly, I can't, you have children. I don't have a child. Can't even imagine what it's like to come back, and be at the prime physically after having a child. But here's the thing, if you're going to talk about that when it comes to athletes who are women, why not also talk about that with athletes who are men? Oh, I hear you just had a baby. Are you getting any sleep? But no, instead, there truly is a separation. It's open season to talk about women and their personal life, but not men so much in their personal life. It's the storytelling behind it. And as someone, who's part of the media, I agree with you. A lot of times we have to also hold, ourselves accountable to that too, because you fall into a rhythm and then you just don't even realize that you're doing it either. Jamie, was there any role model you had, anyone you looked up to, whether it was the way they played the game or in particular, any message they gave you as somebody coming through the ranks?
Yeah, I mean, I think someone that really comes to mind is someone like Jana Hefford. I mean, she's a bigger, and I could just say that name, and a lot of people would agree with me. Just her name alone, I think it stands alone. And I've actually got the opportunity to know Jana over the years. I've worked some of her hockey camps and became pretty good friends with her. And just the way she carried herself as a player and as a professional, even now, she's doing a big part in the PWHPA and trying to grow the game. And I can admire someone like that who always has her eyes on other people and always wants to grow the game and always doing things around her. And it was just something that I've always, I remember the two in 2002, she scored that goal with 2 seconds left in the second period to go up on the Americans. And that's like my first memory as a kid, watching the Olympics. And that was kind of like, okay, this is what I want to do now. And I think that was something that kind of stuck with me over the years. And it's pretty neat now to say that she is a friend of mine and that she's been such a big part in my development too as a player. I've been able to kind of talk to her and chat with her over the years in terms of my career and that kind of stuff. So someone that everyone that can always look up to is someone like Jana.
Oh, she is awesome. Absolutely love her. We'll get into the PWHA. I want to get into the Dream Gap Tour in just a moment. Kelly, who is your role model?
Like I said earlier, I mean, it really was in my home, was my original role models, was my mom, was my sister, whatever they did, I wanted to do, I wanted to be engaged with. And I had a dad who really didn't see a difference between male and female. It's like, you're just in like a dirty shirt. But when I was actually competing, And once I started to open my vision to what was out there, it was about when I was like 9, 10 years old. And I watched Karen Lee Gardner win a gold medal. And I was like, whoa, a Canadian can do that. And I dreamt I was an Olympian that night. I dreamt I won a medal. I came down and told my parents, I'm like, I'm going to be an Olympian. And they were like, oh, great. Skiing. And I'm from Kitchener, Ontario. And they're like, okay. But they didn't say I couldn't. And I mean, even the sweater that I'm wearing, it commemorates the 100 years that alpine skiing and Alpine Canada has been around in Canada. And it's a take on Nancy Green Rain's sweater that she wore in 1968 when she won. And that is a role model who, like you, Jamie, I've become friends with. I can call her up, and she's an incredible role model for so many generations that, you know, looking back is as important as looking ahead.
Oh, I love it. I love those types of stories. It's so great, the amount of people who have touched your lives. And you're right, a lot of times it starts in the home, and then you look around. I always want to give a shout out to Terry Leibel when I can, because to your point there too, Jamie, you watch somebody and Kelly, it's the Olympics, right? What a draw. It is the pinnacle of sport. And when I saw a woman hosting the Olympics, I went, bingo, gonna do that one day. So shout out to Terry Leibel.
And then you did.
And then I did. How about that? See, if you see it, you can be it. It's a goodie. It's an oldie, but a goodie, right? That saying, we absolutely love it. But I do want to get into the state of women's hockey, Jay, because we know the CWHL, obviously that folded. A lot of the women's hockey players said enough is enough. We need to start being treated with some respect here. It's not like they were asking already to be making the $10 or $11 million salaries that NHL players are making. But, you know, speaking to even Marie-Philippe Poulin, she goes, how about a proper locker room that I can actually leave my gear in and not have to take it home and air it out in my own garage, or if you live in a condo on your balcony? How about that, right? Like, it seems like you're just asking for some pretty common sense things here. And I'm wondering, you know, your reaction to also Danny Ryland stepping down as commissioner, right, of the NWHL, where it looks like they're trying to go that way of private ownership as opposed to one person, and then, you know, money is very sparse to go around. Do you think that's a good positive step?
I mean, I think so. I mean, you know, I think any step right now in women's game is a good step. And you know what? I think the big thing, like Marie said, you know, is we're not asking for a lot. We're just asking for resources, right? We just want to be treated. We want to go to the rink and be able not to worry about anything but play. And I think that's fair, right? As a professional athlete, you know, you look at the guys in the NHL and the Leafs. They literally just walk in the rink. All they have to do is put their gear on and go and play, right? And for us right now, in terms of women's hockey, we're not there yet, right? That's what we're pushing for as with this PWHPA. And you know, I think we're gonna get there. You know, I can imagine the time where I get to walk into the rink and all I gotta do is put my gear on and play. And you know what? It will take time, but how cool is it going to be in 10 years when I get to say, hey, this great group of women came together and got this going? And I always say there's too many great people in this game for it not to work. And, you know, there's the game is so good, right? Like I'm in awe of my teammates sometimes in practice and how good they are. And, you know, sometimes we get to skate alongside the guys and they say the same thing, right? They understand where we come from. They see how we train and they're pushing for it too. So, you know what, it's going to happen. You know, patience is key. I think patience is the hard thing, especially in you know, these times. I think we just want everything to happen right away. But if we continue to do the work we are and kind of, you know, get the visibility that we need, and that's the big thing is the visibility, then it'll come. It'll just take some time. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm sure there are a lot of young girls, maybe they're watching right now and listening. And I mean, it's a huge sacrifice as well that, you know, you're making and women are making, because you're in the prime of your career.
Yeah.
And you're basically taking a stand. It is so easy to say, but I'm in the prime of my career, so can we just do this like when I'm ready to retire? Because I'd rather be playing right now. I got to tell you, it takes guts. And I can't tell you how much I admire what you're doing, because you truly, I mean, you're fighting for yourself, but you know you're fighting for those future generations more than anything.
Yeah, and you're right. Like you said, I'm in my prime right now. I'm in late 20s, and you know I feel great as an athlete, and it's scary, right? All you want to do is, you know, and Kelly, you can attest to this. You trained at a high level. You just want to continually pushing your training, and you also want to prove to yourself that your training is paying off and playing in games and competing and playing in a league. And unfortunately, we don't have that right now. But I think the good thing is we have a great group around us that continually remind us that there is a bigger picture here. Like, right, like. Every day might be a grind. There's some days maybe it's tough. You just want to play a game. You want these things to happen. But, you know what, we got to kind of keep looking ahead, and it'll be worth it in the end.
Yeah. Kelly, how does it work? I mean, I know on the World Cup circuit, there's prize money. Have you always felt that it was pretty fair between the men and women?
It is. It's there are sort of mandates from FIS, and the prize money that's mandated from the Federation of International Skiing, so FIS, is the same for men and women. But then there are the bigger events like Schladming and Kitzbühel, and they have bigger prize money. However, for quite a while, Zagreb, when they got the women's slalom, they were trying to attract the men's circuit to get there and to get a slalom. The biggest prize money of the year was a women's race. And that's cool. 100,000 euros went to the winner. I think I would have to double check that, but yeah, exactly. It's a big price. That's a big chunk of change right there.
What's the prize money for après ski? Because I am very good at that.
That, Andy. I don't know. Mandy and I, we got this. I wish there were awards for that, and prize money, unfortunately, should hang over the next day. But it really so much about, Jamie, you talked about just wanting to be able to show up and do your sport. And I often question myself, because a lot of my experiences, I'm like, oh, was it because I was a woman? Was it because I was an Olympian? Because that's not seen as professional sport. And there too, at Olympians, we have to take control over that language, that we are most definitely professional sports. 100,000 euros for the winner. I'm sorry, that's a professional sport. There is nothing amateur about any of it, from the top down, men's side, women's side. Or is it because I'm Canadian? The aspect of our culture that is, we encourage being humble, we encourage lack of ego, we encourage all these things. So there's a lot of experiences that I have even coming into this. I was like, well, did that happen because I was a woman? Did that happen because I was an Olympian? Did that happen because, I'm Canadian? And there's all these layers that come into how people interact with you and how people will devalue what you do. You skied out of hell. How hard can it be? Those kinds of, and devaluing the understanding of the effort and the time that goes into it, and that's what it is.
See, and hearing that also is pretty heartbreaking, because a man, if he's successful, will never really question why he's successful. It's because he just knows he's damn good. But a woman, you're sitting there going, well, was I given chances because of X, Y, and Z? No, it's because you're good. We have a question coming in here. We know statistically that a high percentage of young women leave sport around 14 to 15. What do you think our society and government could do to decrease this flight? Maybe I'll start with you, Jamie. I mean, young women are just leaving the sport at 14, 15. If you can go back to when you were 14 and 15 and kind of, where you were in your sport, why is that such a pivotal age as well, right? And then maybe what needs to change at that age?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think the big thing, we can go back to visibility, right? Like, if I can't see it happening when I'm older, why should I believe that that it can happen, right? So, for example, like, I don't know, the NHL, all the young boys playing, they see that here's a goal. I can get to the NHL. There's something to look forward to in any sports, right? Basketball, anything. I think for us, the more we see it, the more we believe that it can happen, right? So like I talked about the 2002 Olympics, when I saw Gina score that goal, like that's where it clicked for me, right? But it doesn't happen often enough, I think, that we see female athletes doing well on TV. And, now that with the social media age, it's so easy to see it. We just got to make sure it is seen more often. I think maybe that's what we need to start doing, is try to get, women's sports more on TV, more visible. And then maybe at 14, 15, where like you said, Andy, is a very critical age, is that they see it. Oh, okay, I have a goal. I can make this happen. I can make it a living. I can make it a goal of mine to get to this point. And I think that's all part of it.
And having a society that affirms a girl going for it and still continuing to do sport, where it's not like, oh, well, school's pretty important. Oh, well, having a rounded life is pretty important, like kids and, those things. Yeah. And that was part of my take, is like, was it people, did they devalue it because I was a woman, or did they devalue it because I was pursuing a sport in the Olympics that not as many people knew about it? Whereas for those guys, oh yeah, you might make $1 million. You should definitely go to the NHL. Whereas for women, it's like, you could do something better with your time. Yeah. And that, we have to change that as society. And there are amazing groups out there like Chandra Crawford and the Fast and Female, where it's just fun, it's engaging, it's trying to have interactions with young girls and stars and letting them know there are other options, and valuing movement and sport as a choice, as a career, not just as a frivolous, oh, I want a pretty little girl. Good job doing some sport. Now let's get serious.
Yeah, no, it's very true. To your point, to both of your points, the conversation is different because for men, you can actually see a career being had in it. And for women, it's like, do you really want to go through all this to either A, maybe not make any money, or perhaps you can make some money doing it, but then you'd have to hold down a second job. And you see how the conversation, can definitely change when you're talking to a young boy, 14, 15, and a young girl at 14, 15. But I'm hoping that we can help change that conversation from the words that we use to, maybe some people, there are fathers out there that maybe don't know what to say to their daughters who are in sport. So we hope that we can help with some of the conversations as well. No one's here to judge. We're just here to move forward. That's the key. Jamie Lee, Rattray, Kelly VanderBeek, three-time world medalist, Jamie Lee, an Olympian as well, and Kelly VanderBeek, and successful on that World Cup ski tour. Thank you so much to the two of you for the insight that you've provided. Really appreciate it. It was so great seeing you. I'm sure, a lot of people learned so much from listening to you. And then I have two other great athletes joining me next as we say goodbye to Jamie Lee, Rattray, and Kelly VanderBeek. So we went from the winter athletes. I told you this, right? So we're going from winter to summer. And right now, there we go. We've got our summer athletes joining us at the moment. There is Crystal Emmanuel, sprinter, two-time Olympian, Pan Am Games medalist as well, Canadian record holder in that 200 meter. What's up, Crystal? And then we have Melissa Humana-Paredes, who is beach volleyball player. Sarah Pavin is your partner, and you are a world champion. That's right, and Commonwealth Games champ. So great to have the summer athletes with us as we're saying goodbye to summer, and I just want to feel the sun on me.
I know.
I know, but it's okay. We're going to be looking ahead to the Tokyo Games. That will be part of the conversation. Karen, thank you so much. She says, thanks for the conversation so far. Really appreciate you tuning in. Everyone who's tuning in on all the different Facebook platforms, really appreciate. David saying, good day, Melissa. He's saying hello.
Hi, David.
So there you go. Hi, Melissa and Crystal. A lot of people tuning in right now as we're going to continue with our conversations here, benefits and barriers when it comes to women in sport. And I'm going to start off this conversation the same way I started off with our other two athletes, because I always want to start off on a positive note. Melissa, I'll begin with you. The joy that beach volleyball brings to you. If I were to ask you to put a paragraph together on what beach volleyball has brought, the joy it's brought into your life, what would that be?
Oh my gosh, beach volleyball has created who I am, really. It's created my identity. It's created my community. The joy that I get from playing this sport, it's really indescribable. It's kind of like a feeling where I feel like this is the one thing that I want to be doing. This is the only thing that I want to be doing. I feel most free and most myself when I'm on the court. I know that when I wake up every day, this is what I want to be doing. It's the best job that I could ever have. And what's better than that is not just a job for me. It's something that I love to do. It's my favorite thing to do. And I'm just so lucky I get to do it daily.
Crystal, it's the same with you. Every time you put on those spikes and you step out onto the track, what kind of joy does track and field bring to you?
Everything. For me, it's been a lifestyle. My mom did it when she was younger, so I was raised to run. I did play other sports, but I think running is, as people would say, my soulmate. So for me, it's as Melissa said, it brought everything for me, like character, giving me a little bit of discipline when I needed it. So every time I train, every time I wake up, I know I'm going to the track to do something I love every single day.
Yeah. How would you describe also the camaraderie? So again, I'll go with you, Melissa, because you do have a partner, but it really is kind of the two of you. How do you help each other out in a sport where it's really just the two of you traveling the world together?
Yeah, I feel very lucky to be able to play beach volleyball because we get both kind of the team aspect and the individual aspect. And I think the team aspect is so important to the success of the sport. And I'm so lucky to have Sarah as my partner. She is really kind of the only person that's there with me through thick and thin. Like she's my person. She's my rock. She's there when I need her. And you can't do it without the team. Mm-hmm. I think Kelly said it just prior, like you sink or swim with the team, and you have to put in so much effort and time and vulnerability into making sure that you create this team and this relationship that will lead to success. And I think Sarah and I have put in so much work into our partnership, because at this level, everybody's good, everybody's fit, everyone can play volleyball. It's the team, it's those little intangible things that will make a difference. And you see, especially in the female side, I think, they curate their partnerships a little bit better. They take better care of it than you see on the men's side.
Yeah. Crystal, how does it work on track? I mean, as a sprinter, you're that lone wolf, right? You got to have a little bit of that swagger. It's different than the long distance running in a lot of ways. And then you come together in relays too. How's that dynamic when it comes to athletics?
For us, it's all about being one, because the baton can't get to the finish line without 4 people. So for us, we just have to keep a tight-knit group, do basically when we go to camps and stuff, we have to be one, eat together, do little activities together to keep each other motivated and know that we can take the baton around the track and get the Canadian people knowing that Canada still has that 4x1 relay team.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get into some nitty gritty conversation here, right? And, Melissa, have you ever been told that, maybe, I don't know, women, what are you doing? Why are you trying to make a career out of this? How far do you think you can go? I'm wondering what the messages were with you when you were younger and coming through the ranks, when you finally decided this is what I want to do. Was there ever a naysayer?
Yes, there definitely have been many naysayers in my career. It started young, and it started mostly because of my size. I was undersized. I was too small. I was too short. So I was told that I wouldn't be able to amount to anything internationally. And I took that into my own hands, and I proved them wrong. And I started to work out a lot so that I could build muscle, so that I could jump higher. I could create that power that was, I guess, seen as a disadvantage for me because I was too short. And so I found myself, I was often one of the only girls in the gym. And I think that was really empowering for me to make a statement and show up and, be squatting a lot. I remember I was young and the guys would be like, oh my gosh, that's how much you squat? How are you squatting so much? Or just make comments like that, like as if women can't be strong or can't squat. And it's funny, it wasn't just when I was growing up. Even just last week, I had a comment. I was in the gym and I was squatting, and I was squatting a decent amount. And this guy was like, oh, are you a power lifter or a weightlifter? And I was like, no, I'm a beach volleyball player. And he's like, beach volleyball players, are they strong? And so it's still to this day, that it's a hard concept to wrap your head around, that female athletes are strong and powerful, regardless of the sport. You don't have to be a weightlifter or a power lifter to be strong. And so I think that is like messaging that we need to get across to all young athletes.
I wonder if anything, you kind of came into any type of similar conversations, Crystal, in your career.
Yes, a lot. I tend to aim for goals that are what people say impossible for athletics. For me, I remember for the NACAT games, North American, Central American, Caribbean games, I sat my coach down and I was like, listen, I want 3 medals. And he looked at me like, do you know what it's going to take to get 3 medals in 3 days? And I'm like, yes. Do you know? He's like, yeah, let's get to work. So I always have that support system that has the positive, and then you have the outside people that can't see you putting in the work saying there's no way she can do it. And by the end of the games, my coach is looking at me. He's like, Crystal, come back. And I was like, what happened? He's like, you got 3 medals. I was so zoned in to prove that any Canadian female can step on the track and go for what they want and aim for the goals that no matter if it's the stars you want, you can get the stars, because I've done it. And I have a lot of people saying like, oh no, there's no way she can do that. Like, it's 3 days, and it was the hottest time of the summer that year. And they're like, no way, no way. And I was like, deep down, I dug and I was like, you can say what you want to say, but I am going to believe in myself. And I went for what I wanted. And my mom was just like, that's my girl. Like, I know I brought you into this world to go for what you wanted. And that's what we did. So a lot of people are going to doubt us because we are female. They always have that question mark. And it's like, okay, I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from both of you, and I'll keep going with you, Crystal, is that there seems to be a lot of digging in the heels, right? And not taking you know what from anybody. And it almost seems like for many years, it wasn't, let's put it this way, maybe it was frowned upon for a woman to challenge or to kind of be in your face about something, right? Like that's not considered feminine, right? There are the feminine characteristics and the masculine characteristics. And it just kind of seems like you defy that. You're like, what does that even mean? Why should that even apply to me, right? I mean, who instilled that in you? I mean, I guess sounds like your mom was a huge part of that. But I go to support groups because I feel like people around you are kind of waving the pom-poms as well to say, no, you dig in those heels. And who was that for you?
For me, it's always been my mom and my dad. My dad was a bodybuilder back in the day, and my mom was a track athlete. So they instill, like, I knew sport, or I knew somewhat of a workout or be fit type situation. And for me, many years I've heard people say, look around you. Like, do you not see the type of girls that run with you? And the girls that I've seen, I was like, yeah, they're beautiful. Like, they're getting it done on the track while they're beautiful. But then I had someone say to me, and look at yourself. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And I was like, I don't get it. They're like, look at the hair they wear. Like, look at what they do with their face. I'm like, so you're telling me I have to change my image in order to be seen? And I was like, that doesn't make sense. I'm strong and beautiful in whatever I do. And they were like, well, you're not going to get much sponsors that way. If you bite back and say, well, I'm natural and this is how I am. Yeah, you're not going to get much from that. So my support system always instilled, be you. Like, I shouldn't have to change who I am in order to achieve stuff. So my parents always instill that strong, like, no matter what anyone says to you, come back to us and let us instill what we instill from young. You're beautiful no matter what. And what you do, you're strong and you're healthy. So don't matter what anyone else says, this is you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, don't you just want to slap people who made me change my look? What are you talking about? I won't get sponsors. Yeah. It drives you bad. And that's something that, unfortunately we still hear to this day. I mean, Crystal, you're telling us about it. I know there were women in the National Women's Soccer League, also recently a story breaking as well, where certain women weren't used in team advertising, and they have the owner quoting now because they weren't attractive enough. Like, suddenly that is what women have to worry about when they're going out there being the best they can be in their sport.
Yeah, I think all I hear in social media and marketing sites, sex sells. So if you're not wearing makeup, if you're not doing your hair, if you don't look a certain way, they don't want to pick you. You're okay, not her, but her. You know what I mean? So I'm like, that shouldn't be what it is. I should be strong and beautiful, and you pick me because that's who I am.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Melissa, who were your support staff and support group that kind of gave you the edge to turn around and say, don't tell me I can't?
I mean, immediately that comes to mind are my parents. They are immigrants from Chile, and they came and had to start fresh in Canada. And so they had to pave their own way. And I learned a lot from that. It took me a while to realize kind of that hard work and, making your own path. And the older I got, the more I realized how important it was to create a support system that was strong enough and that cared for you and that had your interest in mind. And so I made a point to kind of surround myself with strong women. My mom is definitely one of the first one that comes to mind. And my partner, Sarah Pevin, is probably the strongest woman I've ever known. And I learned so much from her, and just modeling myself and picking strong women as your role models to learn from and to emulate, I think is so important for a young female. That's why we need that exposure. That's why we need those role models to be seen. We need those stories to be told. And so I will always try and support and cherish female athletes and women in my circle, and lift each other up, because we know what it's like to be women in society. And we know that we need to support each other, because we're probably not going to get it from other areas.
Yeah, that's the truth. And just another thing, I can share just a quick little story too. When I was first getting into broadcasting, I was basically told if I wanted to go far, I probably should get breast implants, Because, you know, that's where the camera goes, right?
Oh, oh my gosh.
Let's just say I still have money in the bank. I didn't spend it on that. So let's just say that didn't happen, but it's amazing what gets told to you. You're like, excuse me?
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, Crystal, you struck a chord with that one, that's for sure. With somebody, I don't know if we can pop that up again when it came to female coaches. This is an interesting one, right? Like, how much would it help, I guess? So yeah, there we go. Shelley Johnson, right? Do you think that having more female coaches would be an advantage to women staying in sport? In your careers, how many female coaches did you have? Or do you think it would have helped to have some more? Crystal, I'll start with you. Just maybe the advantages of having women in those types of positions. Have you had them? Do you think we need to see more?
My first coach was my mother. So that I've only had one so far. But I think, yeah, that would be a big change, because like a lot of us feel like when we need to talk about certain things as a female, you have a male coach who's not going to understand, or he's going to say something that isn't like clicking with you because, okay, I don't understand what you mean because you don't understand me as a female. So I feel like a lot of more female coaches would be amazing, like to help us and guide girls in sport, to show them the way, like, oh, you don't need to be a certain way. Like, look at me, like, this is my accomplishments. Like, I did this throughout my career without being told I can't do it, if that makes sense. Like, it's just that the comfort of being able to talk to another female about something, I'll say, society says to a female that can't do sports. I can't do sport because you're a female. That doesn't make sense. But coach, this person said, and you can go back to her and be like, and she will know to say as experience that that's not right.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, a lot more.
Yeah, and I'll bring this up. I think I maybe took a lot of people, and I'm going to probably catch you guys off guard. I don't know, maybe. But on International Women's Day, this very question was also brought up about why we're seeing young girls leave sport, typically around 14, 15. And I said, do you kind of know what happens to a woman's body? I mean, it's all different ages, but do you know the common theme of that age? And I said, let's be real here. And this is where I think, a female coach, to your point, Crystal, maybe you can have conversations with her that you can't really feel comfortable having with a male coach. And that is, suddenly your menstrual cycle kicks in. And I think a lot of girls, if there's other girls, I can tell you, and I was very young and I was the only girl on my team who had it. How do you have those conversations even sometimes with your own teammates? You're uncomfortable. I got to run to the bathroom. Again, what's in your hand? Nothing. Why are my shorts white? I don't feel like wearing white shorts today, right? Can I wear black shorts today? Yeah. So, and I just wonder, I mean, Melissa, how would it change too? I mean, these are things that I think men, and I don't blame them for this. How do you even think about that? Because it doesn't happen to your body. But when you're a young girl and it's changing, how much does also a woman's voice as your coach help with that?
I think it's so important. And I think it doesn't happen enough. I think that's a really, really fragile age for a lot of young women. It's formative, and so many changes are happening in your life physically. And to have someone that doesn't understand what you're going through, that can't relate, can't empathize, I think it's a deterrent. I think if you have this kind of figure, this head figure in your life that cannot relate to you, you probably aren't going to want to show up. You're not going to want to be there. And I think I've been told, a few times from male figures, the difference between coaching men and women is how emotional women get. And that gets me every time. They don't understand. They just don't understand how to kind of handle women. And if you have female coaches, you'll be able to kind of cherish that environment and really like engage young girls and understand that it's normal, it's okay. We all go through these changes, and they're to be embraced and to be celebrated. They're not to be dismissed, and they're not seen as negative. And I think we need to invest more in getting female coaches so that young girls can look up to someone and have someone that they can lean into. Those coaches become, your friends and your therapists, and they're there for you through thick and thin. So you need to have someone you feel comfortable with.
Oh, that's such a tired narrative of women being emotional. I mean, I cover a lot of male athletes, and let me tell you the things that they bicker about and that they go back and forth about, and they'll try to use the media. Go ask my coach this about me. I'm like, I'm not going to be a little snitch here either, right? Like, men get very involved in that game too. I feel like it's such an antiquated thing to say. It's such an old narrative of women being more emotional. And that was something I was actually discussing with the other women. Crystal, was maybe the words that we use, right? And those types of things and how we describe women as well. I'm wondering, if you feel the same way, how do you change the conversation? And a lot of times we always feel the need to associate the gender when it comes to women's sports, right? But not when it comes to men. Like, I'm pretty sure, like the 100 meter, but like, this is the women's 100 meter. You're like, why?
Yeah. Back for me, I've been blessed with an amazing coach, Charles Allen, and we built a bond from around 2015. We built a bond, and I could talk to him about anything because I'm comfortable with him. And having my mom around 24/7, like, she follows me everywhere. She's at practice all the time, so she knows if to message my coach and say, well, Crystal's not feeling well, or I can openly say to him, like, coach, this month it's going to be hard, whatever. Like, we discuss these kind of things. So for me, I've been blessed that way, but I know there's many women and girls out there that aren't open to that conversation with their coach, because more like a lot of male coaches are like, what's wrong with you? Well, I can't say I'm moody today. Like, okay, I'm not feeling well. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't come out and say that to you because you're saying, what's wrong with you? Like, what's with the attitude? Because I'm not feeling well, So I feel like I was blessed that way. So I need more male coaches to see, open your eyes. We are female. We need, some days I'm going to be amazing. Some days we're not. Yeah. We need a bit of patience, more patient than male. Like, you can come to practice every single day and nothing's wrong with you. Don't ask me what's wrong with me. I just need a little bit more patience.
Yeah. Well, and it's just the body is different, right? And when you have a better understanding, you just end up being a better coach too. Knowing when a woman's body can hit a certain peak performance in the month and when she can't. I do have to ask you this, because this is obviously different with the two of you compared to Jamie Lee Rattray and Kelly VanderBeek, right? They were, Winter Olympians. They have a little bit more gear, although Kelly, I know skiers, they do have, the skin suit. But with summer athletes, and in particular with the two of you, I mean, there is very little clothing. Let's face it. But I can also understand why. It can be very inhibiting, and you want to be able to be free to move your body. There is a reason why that is. But do you feel that sometimes that's used against you and it just ends up sexualizing you? Melissa, I mean, and Chris, I know, but let's start with you, Melissa, because already I can see it. You're nodding your head because beach volleyball, you're right. I can even say, whenever I tell someone I'm going to a beach volleyball tournament, right away, they don't talk about like, ooh, what are the men going to look like? It's, oh, the women with their little skin. It's like, oh, God, here we go.
Yeah. This is a story of my career. I mean, this narrative, people love to latch onto. And I think it shows a lot about where we are in society. We cannot see beyond that. And regardless, being someone who is somewhat successful in the sport, my narrative always goes beyond my achievements. This discussion around women's sports, it's never about accomplishments and athleticism. There's always more. It's about how she looks. It's about how she talks, her facial expressions, her hair. It's always more. You're going to ask Jeannie Bouchard to twirl after a tennis game. You would never do that to a man. And so there's always an emphasis on looking for something more. And for our sport, it's our uniform. And what people seem to miss as well is that our uniform is made to make us feel strong and powerful. We play in what makes us feel strong and powerful and how we are going to perform at our best. And if that means, wearing a bikini, if that means wearing leggings, if that means wearing a long sleeve, it's possible. There's this image that's stuck in my mind from the 2016 Rio Olympics where it was Egypt against Germany at the Olympics. And I mean, it's a beautiful picture because the Egyptians are wearing long leggings, long sleeves. And I actually have the picture here. I kind of want to show it. I don't know if you can see. Perfect. This is beach volleyball. This is what it is. You wear what you want to wear to make you feel comfortable, to make you perform. And people don't like to see that part of the game. They want to forget that that's part of the game. We can wear more than just a bikini, but we choose to wear this, and that's okay. As women, we choose to wear this because this is what we like to wear. And apparently that's not enough for society. They have to make that into a story rather than accepting that, no, this is what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about that, Crystal? Because again, it's very similar in athletics.
Yes. What some of us wear boy shorts, and some wear what we call brief or panty. But if you Google athletics or you Google sprinting, a lot of times you would see more pictures of the bottom half than the top half. So like when we're running and we're trying to achieve goals that we aimed for all year, and you Google yourself and you see sexiest athlete in track and field, and you just see your butt just on the screen, you're like, well, I thought I run from here up. I know legs are showing, but is that what you're showing? Really? Like a lot of people are like, yeah, like athletics is a sport to watch. Why are you watching it? Most people would say, oh, Usain Bolt is running, this person's running. But then you hear about the females. Yeah, we achieved something, but did you see how beautiful she looked? Did you see how she looked in her uniform? And you're just like, I came here to run fast. Please, can we get past the sexiness? Yes, I wear my uniform. I feel sexy, but I also feel strong in my uniform. I'm here to put out power in my uniform, not for you to showcase me after the Olympics and say, well, I won 2 medals and I'm great at what I do. Nah, you sexy. What else are we really looking at athletics for? And that really frustrates some people, or some people are just like, oh, okay, yeah, I am sexy. I'm glad you see it. But then
Oh, I think she kind of cut out a little bit. We'll wait for Crystal to come back. But it's so true. And I think, Melissa, you kind of hit it on the head too. Oh, there you are, Crystal. We got you? There we go. There we go. We'll get you to finish your sentence, because you literally had just cut out. So I'll get you to finish your sentence about like being strong and, not that kind of other part of it.
Yeah, like being strong in my uniform and not just being out there to be sexy or show sexual. Like, it's not anything sexual. I'm here to perform and put Canada and my country on the spectrum that there's female sprinters in the world, not just to look sexy.
Yeah. And that's what I'm hearing from both of you. And I know Melissa kind of hit it home too. And you said there's a choice, right? Like there's a reason behind every uniform, right? Like that's what it is, right? That is your competitive uniform. There's a reason behind everyone, right? I mean, listen, in a day and age of analytics and sports science, everything is taken into consideration, right? With what's going to be ergonomic and what's going to give you the best advantage possible and make you feel free and your limbs feel free. And it's a choice. Yeah. And I think for a lot of women, that's the message they want to portray. And to your point, if I want to wear lipstick while I race, we just want to know that it's your choice that you're doing that. Don't say I'm sexualizing me. No. How the message comes out, how you photograph me, how you speak around me, that's how it does it. But what I do to make myself feel good and put myself in the best competitive mind frame as possible, that should be my choice. And I feel like in so many ways, that choice is not what's respected for women compared to men. I see men in certain sports, they go out and do their funky little mohawk or whatever they do with their hair. Nobody's really talking about how much hairspray or gel he used. And is he trying to get himself an underwear, deal? But with a woman, it's like, ooh, why is she wearing that mascara? She trying to get herself a makeup deal? The choice part of it doesn't seem to be understood. Is that what frustrates you the most?
100%. And I think our choice as women is often threatened by other people. And you're seeing it down south right now in terms of legislation about our bodies and who has control over our bodies. And as women, we have to take those choices and empower them. We have to show and tell people that these are our choices. These are our bodies. We get to decide what happens to them. And I think people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear us say, this is what we want to do. This is how we want to portray ourselves. And they want to take away those choices. We cannot let that happen.
Yeah. Crystal, do you feel the same?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's look ahead. And there's so many incredible messages here. And the two of you, I think, are also, you're putting it out here right now. But when you're competing, I think now when people look at you, I really hope that's what they see are powerful women, but behind the number that you wear or the sand or the track that you're on, it's powerful women competing. And these are the messages that so many young girls need to be receiving. But I also need to know, what's going on in your training? The Tokyo Olympics are supposed to be this past summer. We know they're not. Melissa, you and I have had the chance to catch up a little bit. But how are things going? Now that it seems like they're a go, whatever they're going to look like fan-wise, spectator-wise, we don't know that yet. But is there a little bit more comfort in knowing that there seems to be something now that you are working towards with the Olympics seeming to be a go now?
Yes, I think last month, I finally got into a routine of being back home in Toronto and training and having access to our facilities and gyms again. And then a couple of weeks ago, we kind of went back to phase 2. So our facilities closed. So what I did was I flew across the country to BC, and I have a facility here that I'm training out in, which is amazing because I just can't afford to take any more time off of training. I can't afford to not get the strength back. I can't afford it anymore. The Olympics are coming and we have to prepare. So I had to find a solution very quickly. I did, and I'm here and I'm training, and I'm so happy that I'm here. I feel like I'm in my happy place. I'm focused and I'm goal oriented. Sights are set on Tokyo.
Yeah, Crystal, how are things going? How are things going for you in preparing for track?
It's going great so far. For us, going back to stage 2, sorry. Hasn't been too rough. The gym has closed, but we compromise and go outside with the weights. So it's been going good. We still have the track and able to train and still be focused on Tokyo and other events that are coming up. So for me, it's still going great. Fingers crossed that things stay that way.
Yes. Well, definitely fingers crossed, because I know the two of you are going to do fantastic things. And we really appreciate you taking the time today for Canadian Women in Sport, talking about some of the benefits and barriers of sport. Melissa Humana-Paredes, World and Commonwealth Games champ in beach volleyball with partner Sarah Pavin. Crystal Emmanuel, former Canadian champion, Pan American Game medalist, joining us here in track and field, specializing in sprint. So fingers crossed that we see you in Tokyo representing the Maple Leaf, and appreciate some of the incredible insight and just being raw and open and sharing your experiences. The more we talk about it, the more we get it out there. It's not a stigma, and the better chance we give ourselves at making changes and moving forward. Thank you to all our special guests. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. We appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. I'm Annie Petrillo. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.